A warm good morning to one and all present here. Excellence is the result of high intention, sincere effort, and the vision to see obstacles as opportunities. I welcome you all to this virtual podium for the international seminar, Understanding the Learning Process During COVID-19 from a Social Neuroscience Perspective by Bharatmata College of Commerce and Arts, Aluva. When you pray, God listens. When you listen, God talks. When you believe, God works. We'd like to start the session with a prayer song.
Praise the Lord from the heaven. All the angels sing, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord from the heights of creation. They shall praise the name of the Lord. He commanded them, and the heavens obeyed. He established them, and they rose from the waves. The sun and moon praise the Lord with the light, and the stars above, how they keep shining through the night. Praise the Lord from the heaven. All the angels sing, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord from the hearts of creation. They shall praise the name of the Lord. They shall praise the name of the Lord. They shall praise the name of the Lord.
Thank you, dear. I'm happy to welcome our principal, Dr. M.L. Joseph, a symbol of confidence and an inspiring leader. Happy to invite you, sir, to the virtual podium for the welcome address.
Thank you, Professor, please. Respected Father Jacob Puduseri, the Executive Director, Bharatmata College of Commerce and Arts, Chundi, Aluva. Respected Father Sen, beloved faculty members, and my dearest participants, and also the resource person, Dr. Henry Pudutas. We are conducting this webinar today in order to address current issue related to the COVID-19 problems. As all of you know, we, the mankind, is passing through a period of difficult time due to unabated spreading of coronavirus, popularly known as COVID-19. The most striking fact is that the pandemic is frightening the global population, irrespective of all our technological advancements and intellectual superiority. The pandemic has impacted a paradigm shift in various arenas of our life, including social, economical, spiritual, behavioral, and whatnot. Among these, probably teaching, learning, and research is one of the worst affected areas. Education has changed dramatically with the distinctive rise of e-learning, whereby teaching is undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. Whether it is language apps, virtual tutoring, video conferencing tools, or online learning software, there has been a significant rise in usage of these gadgets since COVID-19. It is estimated that globally, around 2 billion children are out of their classrooms right now. Students are responding to the roll calls of their teachers online. And the current apprehension is that whether the adoption of online learning will continue to persist during the post-pandemic scenario also. The recent research shows that on an average, the student retain 25 to 60% material while learning online when compared to 10 to 20% in the classrooms. This is mostly due to a fast learning effectiveness of the online learning. It is further estimated that e-learning requires 40 to 60% less time to learn than in a traditional classroom mode. Thanks to the ICT-enabled revolution in the e-learning procedure. Imagine a situation where all these gadgets are not there. It would have definitely created a big lacuna in the sphere of learning and teaching. However, there are certain constraints associated with e-learning or online learning procedure. Mainly the digital divide between rural and urban, or rich and poor, affecting a larger marginalized proportion of the world population. Then problems associated with familiarization and adoption of technology, lack of opportunity for experiential learning, because in e-learning and online learning, everything is virtual, like virtual labs, virtual industry visits, virtual demonstration, virtual classrooms, etc. It is a kind of distant learning, or we can say passive learning, or other terms like homeschooling or home colleging, etc. In fact, the contradiction is that today's young generation, they are techno-savvy and also vibrant generation, they like to learn by doing. So there is little scope for learn by doing in the distance mode of learning. And there are n number of issues associated with the facilitator and or the educator side. Now, we have to withstand this condition and we have to continue with our education process. And there are lots of stress associated to acclimatization and adoption of e-learning techniques. And the whole community, including the parents, the society, they are all facing these challenges in the current time. With this introduction, I am entering into my duty of welcoming this August gathering. First and foremost, our Executive Director, Father Jacob Puducherry, is a great leader of Bharat Mata College of Commerce and Arts Chundi, and also our strength of resource, spiritual as well as academic, who is leading from front. Father, a hearty welcome to you, dear Father Jacob Puducherry. Secondly, our Father, Assistant Executive Director, Father Sen, is a well-experienced person who has been our guiding light, always giving advice at the right time. Hearty welcome to Father Sen. Now we have our eminent resource person, Dr. Henry Pudutas from West Texas University, US. Now, he was kind enough to spend his valuable time with us in this occasion and also to enlighten us on the very relevant topic. Dear respected Dr. Henry Pudutas, on behalf of the management, staff and students, we welcome you to this August gathering. Now, the distinguished participants from nearby institutes who are uh, very anxious to get knowledge and you are very much in the field of education. I appreciate their initiative for participating in this seminar, for their active participation. So I welcome you all to this gathering. I also welcome our strength, the faculty members of the BMCCA and other benefactors of this program. Thank you very much. Welcome all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I call upon our Executive Director, Father Jacob Puducherry, who has been the guiding light of our Bharat Mata fraternity. Father, it is my pleasure to invite you for the introductory speech.
Good morning, everybody. Respected Dr. Henry Podudas, Director and Associate Professor, Graduate Social Work Program, West Texas, A&M University, USA. Dr. M.L. Joseph, our beloved Principal, Father Sen, our dear Assistant Executive Director, Dr. Saumya K.M., IQSC Coordinator, Professor Joe Peter, NAC Coordinator, my dear faculty members and my dear participants. Lockdown, containment zone, isolation, quarantine, sanitization, social distancing, these are the words that we most use in these days. Wearing a mask in the fear of a coronavirus, we are always in isolation and socially distant. To prevent the spread of COVID-19, we now restrict our movements and avoid gatherings. Stay at home, work from home, study from home, and even teach from home. Governments, business organizations, and even educational institutions have been affected due to COVID-19. We had people coming to educational institutions daily to learn and teach. The current pandemic has forced the entire education system to adopt online teaching and learning method. Till the end of 2019, work from home was considered as a privilege by the IT companies to their selected employees only. Now, we all are having the freedom of working, teaching, and studying from home. But students need the support, guidance, practical training, counseling, etc. to complete a formal education. And the best person is a teacher to make this happen. This is more effective in a physical classroom by seeing each other, exchanging ideas instantly, and discussing doubts in the classroom itself. We have a saying in Malayalam, Guru Mukhattu ninnu padikkuka, study from the face of the teacher. This is more effective than virtual classrooms. Facial expressions is a good means of communication, and the eye contact expressions of the teacher help the student to grasp matter better. From the expression of the student, the teacher can understand whether students could follow the instructions in the classroom and accordingly can modify the teaching method. Through online courses, both the teacher and the student lose the opportunity to understand the viewpoint of each other. This would result in bad result of the students and poor performance in the examinations. Lockdown in the house, containment of the youthfulness, isolation from the friends, social distancing from the college and the activities, and the mask of online classes, all these may lead to many problems in the students. In this situation, we discuss on the subject, understanding the learning process during COVID-19 from a social neuroscience perspective. I wish all the best to all of you, and thank you all for preparing this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I call upon Father Sen Kallungal, Assistant Executive Director. He is known for his perfection and hard work. Father has been the backbone of our college. I'm happy to invite him to introduce the resource person. Father,
Good,
please.
yeah. Good morning, all. I am very glad to introduce our eminent resource person, Dr. Henry Poduthas. Dr. Henry Poduthas is an associate professor and director of the graduate social work program at West Texas A&M University, USA, with a combined research and teaching experience of 18 years in social work. He has authored several peer-reviewed in international journals, research articles, and book chapters. He serves as the editorial board member of an international journal and peer reviewer of 4 reputed international journals. He has presented papers in various international and national conferences. In addition to his doctoral degree in social work from University of Utah, USA, he holds MA in economics from Sacred Heart College, Tevra, and MSW from Rajagiri College of Social Sciences. He has organized various seminars, conferences, and workshops nationally as well as internationally. His research interests extend from psychosocial challenges of children, adolescents, and families to refugees and social policies. Currently, he is working on 2 research projects in the realm of resource deserts and social economic marginalization. We are lucky to have Dr. Henry as our resource person for the topic, understanding the learning process during COVID-19 from a social neuroscience perspective. I welcome on behalf of Bharat Mata family, Dr. Henry for his delivery.
Thank you, Father. It's been my privilege to welcome the resource person of the day. Sir, the session is starting now. Dr. Henry Poduthas, please welcome for the session.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, right?
Oh, yes, sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Father Jacob. Thank you, Father Sam, and also Principal Dr. M.L. Jose, to inviting me to this occasion to talk about during this. I think this is a very unprecedented time where we are completely at home most of the time, and we are learning new things, how to navigate our day-to-day life along with how to navigate in the learning environment. So this is an interesting time, as well as surprisingly something we never expected to happen in our life. You know, we watch only in the movies this kind of a pandemic happening in the world. So we are here now in that realm of a new challenging times. So let me begin with let me bring my presentation here. Let me see. I can bring my yeah. Okay. So this will be briefly. I always say this will be a 45-minute presentation. I hope I will stick with the time, and then you will have 15 minutes for asking questions. You should feel free to ask question anytime when I go through this presentation. If you feel like you need to ask questions, just put it in the chat line there. So we will come back at the end of the presentation, and I will address those questions. So it is good to be here and seeing. I know I can't see you all, but I'm talking to a computer right now in a small camera. So I only see my PowerPoint presentation. So let's start. It's like acting in a movie, right? And also, a lot of time people are now using these YouTube videos, and so like them, I am just using this platform to communicate with you. The topic is understanding learning from a social neuroscience perspective during COVID-19. You know, this topic is relevant during COVID-19, as well as this is also relevant in our day-to-day life. When we go into teaching and learning environment, this is very relevant. That's why I thought I will bring up this topic and also connect what's happening in our brain and when the learning happens. So we will briefly navigate through all those kind of topics. Let us begin with that. And my name is Henry Porutas. I'm an associate professor and the director of the graduate social work program in West Texas A&M University. It's in Texas, like the name suggests. So from there, let me begin with this thing. What are your thoughts about education and learning? You know, when you think about learning, something should pop up, right? Education, something should pop up. When I was a small kid going to school, my image of learning was very constrained environment where the teachers are very strict, you know, with a long cane, they will come to class, and it was something different. So there are a lot of students who were, you know, when there is a classroom test, when the teacher brings back the answer sheet, there are a lot of kids will cry the moment the teacher brings that answer sheet, because, you know, they're worried about education. And we assume that the teacher who are stricter are better because students produce better results. So that is one of the methodology using strict, let's say, punishment methodology. They're trying to create an outcome, a positive outcome. Can we bring with motivation the same outcome? It's a good question. So think about learning and education. What is happening in learning? When we talk about learning, everyone thinks about, I need to teach that, I need to teach this topic, I need to teach, do this math or science, I need to teach them with the commerce, any arts topic, everything. So think backwards. You know, there is a mathematician who said that if you're part of the system, you won't understand the system. It's an excellent way to present it. When we are part of the education and teaching, we don't know the system. We don't know what's happening. So I want you to step out of it and look into what is education and what is learning. You know, everything is connected with your brain, right? What we are dealing, our industry, think about an industry. Industry is connected with the brain. It's not about food. We are not giving them food. It's connected with your stomach, right? On your body as a whole. Maybe when you drink water, it is connected with something, right? Everything is connected. But you are directly dealing with the brain. The exceptional brain. Every brain is unique. It is unimaginably wide, huge. Its skills are, we cannot imagine what can we think about the capacity of our brain. So let us bring that thing. We are doing everything for the brain. That is where we want to think about. When you teach what's happening inside the brain, when there is something happening in your life, how it is connected with your brain and how it is reflecting on learning. That is what we will be discussing today. When you define education, I like this one from Oxford Dictionary, which says that learning is an enlightening experience. Learning is an enlightening experience. As teachers, are you helping to enlighten the students? As students, are you enlightened? The enlightenment is a word we refer with Buddha, Sri Buddha, where he sat under the banyan tree and he was a bodhivriksha and he was enlightened, right? when he sat and so that is enlightenment. That enlightenment is from the darkness towards the light. Tamasoma Jyotirgameva, which we say in our always, from darkness into light. That is enlightenment. So does it happen in our classroom setting? That enlightenment. If it's not happening, then we need to rethink what's happening in our teaching style. Are we looking into just finishing off the syllabus, or are the students cooperating with you, or are you cooperating with the students? Is there a power structure of the superior teacher and inferior student, or it's a hand-in-hand kind of a co-learning environment? So think about all those things, So from there, I need to think about you. What are we? We are called as human beings, belongs to social species. This is a crowded slide. I need to fit in everything in that in one slide, so it's crowded. But I will navigate you through this one. When we think about human as a social species, like every other social species, we have dyads, or let's say dyads is a two people group, a triad, three, a family, or bigger group and cultures. So on one side, we have this social entity, emotional entity, relationship entity. On the other side, we are evolving along with the neural, the nervous system, the hormonal, the cellular, the cells, genetic mechanisms to support each other. So on one side, we are social beings. On the other side, there's a biological being. And this has evolved all through these years. Think about 10,000 years back then. Think about what's happening in 10,000 years. Are we the same, the human beings? No. We evolved. Our relationship evolved. Our biological existence evolved. So these are essential for our survival. And that's why it's at the end of this slide says, ensuring their genetic legacy. Means the reproduction and the survival of the species. It happens, and both are there because the group supports for the survival. And biologically, a lot of things happen to us. We evolve. The height, the weight, our physical structure, the color of the skin, everything changed all these years, right? So that is what social species is all about, right? From there, when we move to social neuroscience, the topic which I am going to discuss, this is an interesting topic, where my side is the social side of neuroscience, which is I'm not going into the biological side of, but I will briefly narrate a few other things, what's happening in the brain, which is essential when you talk about social neuroscience. This is an interdisciplinary field where a lot of disciplines step into this field, because it's a kind of an interdisciplinary field where we study about the neural, hormonal, and cellular and genetic mechanisms, and how it is associated with the biological existence, biological organization in our body. So one side, we look into this neural, so not biological, the social existence of the human. So we look at the neural, hormonal, cellular, genetic mechanisms on one side. That's a biological organization. Then we associate that with the social existence. Okay, that is what, and then if you briefly, I will give you a much more detail about this thing. It studies about the brain and social process and behavior. Okay, what's happening in the brain, then we try to connect that with the behavior, the social processes, how those things are happening. And we study about social interactions, the agency in the sense, the meaning of agency is an act that will bring an outcome. Okay, that is an agency. It's not like the institution kind of agency. So we'll study about the social interaction, the agency, empathy. And empathy specifically, I think your commerce and arts mostly, you will know that term, empathy, because Sympathy is just an emotional kind of, oh, I feel sorry for this person, or sorry for this. Empathy is beyond that thing, beyond the sympathetic behavior. You do something for that person. So that is empathy. And the morality, the morality and social prejudice and affiliation. So those things are covered in this discipline. It's an extensive field. It's an interesting field. I will give an example. That's on the other side. The thing about, this is a college. You're teaching in a college, or you're part of the college system. You're a student or a faculty, or an expert in the field. So you come across love relationships a lot. One of the interesting thing about love relationship is that there are rejections. There's I don't like you. Let's assume a girl said to a guy saying, I don't like you, I don't want you. It is a rejection. Rejection can be extensive. It is one of the most painful things that happen. Let's say, if you think that if a mother goes to a child, and let's say that the child is crying and she holds a baby, the child stops crying. That is acceptance, right? On the other hand, if the child is not stopped crying, that is rejection. Even such a simple thing is rejection. The mother's reaction would be different. On the other side, when the baby stops crying, the mother is happy. That is acceptance. The child accepted the mother, right? So rejection can be very simple to various extents. Let's bring back. Let me come back to the love relationship. One guy is rejected by a girl, and this guy is devastated. What is happening to that person? Can he study well? I don't think so. He's frustrated. Yep, absolutely. Is he angry? Yes. Impulsive? Yes. Maybe he's not socializing with his friends. He's afraid of his friends. He don't want to go out, talk to his friends. He's lonely. Everything can happen. See, one social incident is affecting the brain. Like I mentioned in this slide, you can see that this social rejection is a diagnostic criteria for a lot of psychiatric disorders and mental health disorders, like social anxiety, major depression, it's called MDD, major depressive disorder, MDD, borderline personality, avoidant personality, bulimia nervosa, body dysmorphic, acute suicidal ideation, substance or alcohol use disorders. Just one social rejection is a criteria for diagnosing these kinds of mental health disorders. When I say all these kind of things, don't think that every social rejection leads to a mental health disorder. But there is a imbalance that is happening in the brain. That's what I want you to know. When I was doing my MSW course, my social graduate course, we learned about a lot of psychiatric disorders in that course. Every psychiatric disorder when is presented in the class, we always really, do I have that disorder? Obviously, we think like that, right? Because let's say social anxiety, I do have a social anxiety. Do I have? Yeah, do I? Social anxiety is mostly when you see the big crowd or going into public, you have anxiety. So everyone have one way or other. Going in front of a crowd, let's say in a podium, you have an anxiety. It's a social anxiety. Do I have it? No, maybe. So does it mean I have a mental health disorder? No. So it's a thin line to define where is your disease condition begins, because if it's extensive, then I would suggest you to see a health professional. If not, no, it is natural. Everyone have this kind of thing. We have ups and downs in our life. We are happy, so happy time periods, that euphoric, time period, and depressive time period, very sad. It's happening in our life, so it's okay to have that normal fluctuations in our life. When it is extreme fluctuation, then we need to seek hell in that one. So these I want you to think about. So one incident of social rejection can completely imbalance inside the brain, leading to a lot of problems. How can that guy learn in a classroom setting? Think about that. That's where the importance of mental health service professionals needed in a university or a college setting. From there, let's move to social acceptance and rejection. We elaborate on this topic. From there, I will go in depth into a little bit science after this slide. Let's say this one. Well, if a person is liked by others, what's happening? Greater increased positive mood. Greater increase in positive mood, increased social mood and motivation. Interestingly, what's happening in your brain is that opioid release is happening. When you're motivated, you get that kick like you take an opioid in your brain. See, in the picture it shows in that the red spot. So the nucleus accumbens, that is an area, and I see is an area where this opioid release happens. If people who take drugs, that is where it happens. That's they get that stimulus to go more and do more kind of a thing. So, but naturally, this thing happens when you are motivated. So motivation is so powerful. We need to think about, can I motivate the students rather than what I said about the earlier time periods. I know a faculty, a teacher. He was a teacher in my 7th grade, 7th standard when I was doing. So he was a Malayalam teacher. So when he comes back after the test, he have this watch. He has specs. So he removes that. He removes his watch, and it takes that long cane and everything. That the way he punishes a student for not getting the expected score is huge. It's fear, right? So what happens when there is fear? Fear means withdrawal. That is the major thing, withdrawal. Withdrawal from education. It can happen. The brain shuts off. It can trigger to memorize many things. That will be there. But does the brain reflect, critically think? I'm saying this because in the year 2018-19, all the new innovations, the patent in India was received by foreigners, not Indians. Why? Only 15% was collected by Indians. Patents in India. That is something alarming. We should know that our brain is not thinking for new creation. That is an essential thing for education. It's not about fear, it is about creativity. Help the student to think themselves. Help them to develop their own brain. I know that is how the education has to be happening. So when there is fear, withdrawal is there. And anxiety, like I said in the previous slide, anxiety, depressive symptoms can come up. Anger, impulsiveness, that is part of this borderline personality, which was there in the last slide. So these things happen. So that is basically the nutshell of what the topic is going to discuss. Let us go in depth into what is happening in the brain. Let me say what's happening in the brain. So this is interesting slide. The brain is wider than the sky. If you think about brain is so huge in itself. It is a world in itself. Why it is a world in itself? A lot of things happen there. What do you do if I lift my hand like this? There is something happening in the brain for that. When I'm talking to you, something is happening. That's why I'm talking to you. So think about this brain, the capacity of the immense capacity of your brain. So in a nutshell, the brain brain adapt and readapt to changing environments. That is the amazing thing about human brain. If you are in Kerala, in Alua, your environment, the brain is adapting to that. If you move to Mumbai, it is adapting to that environment. If you move to another country, it is adapting to that environment. The brain adapts. Eventually, it adapts to that environment and readapt. One of the fundamental flaws we had earlier was that the brain stops growing at the age of 24, 25. That was what we thought about. Absolutely wrong. Brain never stops to mature. So it's growing every day, even older age. Only thing is that you had to motivate it to grow. That's all. So that is an interesting thing you should know. Brain is always growing. It's always maturing, even at the older age. So when we say to a politician who is in his 80s and 90s, can we stop this thing and go back home and take rest? No, the brain is still working. If he or she wants to pursue the politics, let them, right? Let them. And but physically they may not be that active. That is another side of the story. But brain-wise, it is growing all the time. That is another thing, is that the sustained plasticity helps accumulation of information, building expertise, transmission of knowledge to the next generation. That is another thing that is happening in the brain. Interestingly, the brain has 100 billion neurons. Just that is this is one side of the brain. There are two sides of the brain. One side, let's say, if you think about half of the side, there are 100 billion neurons. Another side is generating these neurons. Two sides of the brain, like if you divide it into half. So one side has 100 billion neurons, which communicates 10 to 10,000 connections. These neurons, and that means that using an electric charge, it communicates. The neurons communicates each other, and that's the way they survive too. And through the communication is using neurotransmitters. So that is what's happening in our brain. When you learn a new thing, it is like, if you look into that beep, 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 beep kind of thing is happening inside the brain. It's amazing. So how the learning happens? The relationship formed across neurons record our learning in memory. So I said that one neuron is communicating with the other through neurotransmitter. That's how the learning happens. It is stored in the memory. The neurons is storing this memory when it is communicating each other. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So when you learn a new thing, I would say, if you're a teacher, your faculty, if you're teaching a student, you could see the brightness through the eyes. Wow, that's a new thing. If you saw that, then that was a big explosion of neurotransmitter communication that is stored in the brain. That's why information has to be passed when you teach in the classroom. That explosion has to happen. So that is interesting. If you can see, I don't think every time we can see it in the eyes, but we can see it many times. Wow, that's a new information, kind of an expression from the student. So think about such things. So when students learn profiles and strengths of dendritic connections, are altered to store new information. That is what happens. New information is stored in some places. So learning is happening through this neuron. When new neurons are born, it's called neurogenesis. They migrate to the newly learning area. When a new information comes, they are going towards it. So every time there should be generation of generating new neurons. Why? Only then learning will be booming in the brain. I will connect that with the social aspects, why it is very important later. But the food is a major component. Brain needs um, fat and carbohydrates so when you deprive completely, you don't do it. So brain, one of the food for brain is carbohydrate and fat. So that doesn't mean you eat a lot of fatty food or carbohydrate, but you need to eat both. It's a balance. It should be a balanced diet. So think that is one side of the story, the food we eat. And the other side is the thing we will talk about later, about the what we are talking about, the social side of it. So existing neurons are preserved when new neurons are neurogenesis is happening. On the other side, the existing neurons preserved, modified, expanded for retention of memory, deepened existing skill, and develop expert knowledge. So both are working together, right? New neurons are helping, as well as existing neurons are helping in the brain. So and then everything should be connected back to the topic: neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. Neurogenesis, I said, creation of new neurons. Neuroplasticity is the ability to the neural network in the brain to change through growth and reorganization. When they communicate, they change and reorganize because new information comes. They have to do a lot of work in there. It's a busy place. So that is what's happening in there. These are connected to stress, relationships, social climate, emotional climate. Stress in all levels. Maybe a death of the one who loved most in a family. It is creating stress. This neurogenesis is not happening, neuroplasticity is not happening much during that stress. So think about it. If you create a stressful environment, this neurogenesis is not happening. New neurons are not being produced much in the brain. So learning is not happening in the brain. Relationship, social climate, emotional climate. So everything is important when you think about these things. So I will move slightly into the COVID situation too, because this is what's happening here. The stress is high because we had to learn new things, new ways of life, wearing mask. If not, anything can happen. So everything is, lack of relationship. We don't see our friends the way we saw them before. Then the social climate is changed, right? The emotional climate is changed. We are more frustrated, angry, and everything. And also, when there is an election coming in the next year, the political climate is a mess too. It all affects you. When it affects what's happening, your brain is not functioning the way it should be for learning. So from there, let's go to the COVID-19 situation. Basically, in a COVID-19, it is disrupting our day-to-day life. That's the basic thing that's happening. Initially, I remember when Kerala was completely in lockdown, nobody should go out and those kind of things. Initially, it was really hard to adapt to that. Later, we opened up. Then we now locked down in clusters in some locality. That is the new strategy. And also, people who have COVID should be isolated, or who came in touch with, in contact with a COVID patient, individual has to be, self-isolating. Those kind of things. So this is happening to us, and this is something new. We never imagined this is going to happen. So we have to learn a new normal. Then the pre-existing social tensions, social, economic, and political. If you are, if you are not well-paid job, or if you have to work every day to get an income, if your business is not going well, or if your work is not functioning well, everything is affecting day-to-day living. That is a huge social tension that is created. Anxiety, depressed mood, sleeplessness, feeling overwhelmed. All those things can happen. I'm not saying it's happening. It can happen I'm not saying it is happening to everyone, but it can happen to people. Denial. We deny. No, there is nothing called this virus. We are angry. We accuse others. Oh, it's not because of me. That person is doing that. I saw some videos on WhatsApp. Is a prominent social media now. So I get videos. They're accusing others of spreading the virus, and it's there. People are because of this emotional and mental instability. All these things are happening, and they rely on unfounded theories. Every day I get a theory saying that, oh, if you pour this thing to your nose, into your throat, the COVID is gone. Come on. Don't believe that. There is science, the scientific community who is doing all those things. Let them do their work. Amazingly, I never thought that it will take, we are almost into 1 year now. Until now, we don't have much a light at the end of the tunnel. We don't see that from the scientific community, but still there are a lot of developments happening in there. So let's believe that they will come up with a solution. But don't rely on unfounded theories, mostly from the social media. Think about like this. You can write a story and just send to the social media. The next day, people will be circulating it without double checking whether it is right or wrong. So that is the era where we live in. And we try to find our own rationale for problems. It is because of that, it's because of this, everything. Let us come back to reality. This is happening. So we have to accept that. It is not going to go away tomorrow. No. Not today, not tomorrow. Unless we come up with a better treatment as well as a vaccine, it's not going to go away. It is going to be with us for some time. So accept the reality. And how can we change our, adapt to the new lifestyle? That's where we can control it. So these are the things what's happening when we have a COVID situation. When people are threatened of their lives and altered in major, unwanted, unanticipated ways, communication between prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, that is emotional processing center, may be disrupted. That is what I want to connect to. This is the communication is disrupted. Emotional communication. So communication from the brain to the emotional center is disrupted. So every emotional problems can occur. Physically, we increased heart rate, changes in respiration, muscle tension, irritability, sleep disorders, appetite, concentration, repetitive thoughts, everything can happen. So these things, during the time period of COVID-19, all those things are happening for the students. Come back to our classroom settings. For the general population is happening, as well as our students. They may not express it, but it is somewhere in their brain. So when we deal with these students, we have to deal correctly. So I kept this slide specifically, just one single sentence. For serious mental health challenges, you must seek professional help. What we are dealing today is not about serious mental health disorders. It is stress triggered problems that could hinder learning. So stress related one. So we are coming to the last couple of slides. So how can students manage their emotion? This is a huge part. Like I said, the emotional process is disrupted in the brain. So then the student themselves has to manage their emotions. The primary thing is control exposure to news. When you like to go into the social media, you will come across a lot of news. You may listen to the TV channels. You will come across a lot of news. Amazingly, I don't have anything against the news media, but if I turn on the news channels in Malayalam, I don't know. I mostly read the news than listen to the news, just because it is a fight between a lot of experts from different political parties and different fields. It is not something educational, relieving, relaxing. No, it's a stressful incident. I still believe there should be a research happening after the news. If domestic violence increase, it should be, because they are fighting each other, and that frustration comes to us, and we will go and fight with our family. I don't know. That is the level of news what's happening in our news media. It is completely disastrous. The stress level will shoots up to the sky. So think about that. Think about such exposure. You should control the exposure to news. You should practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is huge. You should be relaxed. Mindfulness, you can search for it. So mindfulness is relaxing. Our yoga is a good mindfulness technique. So try to do some kind of an exercises for your mind. That is an interesting thing for helping to be better cope up with the stress related with any kind of stress, even COVID or otherwise. And talk with people and friends. Always keep social distance, but you should talk over the phone, maybe through social media. It will relieve a lot of stress one way or other. Do something you enjoy. That is an amazing thing. You should enjoy it. Do something you enjoy. That helps you a lot to relieve yourself. Then social media news. Like I said, the same thing earlier. The same thing. And you should do daily exercises. Maybe go for a walk or do some ground exercises at home, or and with your friends or something. But always remember, if you're going out with your friends, wear a mask, because you breathe frequently. And those things can trigger this transfer of COVID-19 viruses. So think about that, and also sleep well. Those are the things students can do to control the emotional stress. And on the other side, this is the last slide, basically about the topic. Then I have a couple of slides at the end. In a classroom setting, we need to encourage our students. That is the basic. The motivation is the essential part of teaching. Remember, when you motivate, what is happening inside the brain? Neurogenesis is happening. New neurons are being produced. And the neuroplasticity, that other side of the story. So a lot of information could be new. From the new information is coming, the neurons is jumping into it. The learning occurs inside the brain. So motivation, be inviting to the class. When the students should be excited to come to the classroom. We are going to learn, not just learn something. It's a kind of a social celebration. Think about that, rather than the punishment kind of an aspect, right? I'm nothing against religion, but when you talk about religion, we always say, if you do good, you will go to heaven. If you do bad, you will go to the hell. So there is an incentive to do good, and also there is a setback that can happen if you don't do good, right? So that is not the way I would suggest for the classroom. It should be inviting, it should be motivating, it should be encouraging, and the students should be given the freedom to explore and experiment. See, let's say, for example, if when a student is coming to a classroom, we are trying to put them into a glass bottle, into the shape of a glass bottle. No, that is not their shape. They should grow freely. We have to help them to grow freely, so they will be effective outside the college or university. So that kind of freedom should be there. I'm not saying the complete freedom. It's a thin line between how we define that freedom. But still, think about yourself. How can we help them to grow themselves? That's why on the top right hand corner, the emotional intelligence is an attribute to better suited to handle day-to-day acute stress and chronic perceived stress. Is an essential thing. So emotional intelligence, IQ could be good. That doesn't mean emotional intelligence is good. So how can emotionally handle a stressful situation? We need to help them to achieve that emotional intelligence. And the students by themselves have to try to better the emotional intelligence to achieve these kind of goals. Because remember, when emotional intelligence or your stress is high, learning is not happening much in the brain. It is happening, brain is not that completely shut. Nope, it is happening, but it is minimized. That is something. You need to develop coping strategies for stress. A lot of people have stress. They will do a lot of coping strategies for that. You can step out and go for a walk. That's a good coping strategy. Or you can listen to the music. It's an amazing thing. Maybe you can go talk to your friend. So you have to develop your own coping strategies for stress to relieve and release your stress out to. So because it accumulates, and then you have to let it go. So it will help with your improving your cognitive and emotional well-being. So cognitive is thought process, and emotional, that. So it will help with that one. So, and basically we need to encourage and motivate students to learn by themselves. That is an essential part. The students should learn by themselves. You're there to help. I know our culture is to teach. Don't teach. Don't contaminate them. Don't teach. Let them learn by themselves. We are there to show them the way. Show them the way. Oh, this way, if you go, you can reach there. That's all. If you learn this kind of a thing, you can be there. When you teach, the brain should work. Whose brain? The student's brain. They should think, the brain, the neuron there should be a festival inside the brain. That is teaching. It's not about, I'm going to teach you about this thing and this is the definition. No. If you're teaching like that, you're not helping the brain. It is trying to just absorb everything that is coming in. It is not reflecting, critically thinking. You should help the brain to critically think itself. Then learning happens. Then, like I said, it is a celebration inside the brain. So, I think I'm there. Just 4 more minutes, I believe. No, 1 more minute. I'm on time. So thank you very much. And I have my references here, which everything is supported with scientific evidence. The empirical evidence is important for when I present. So everything is connected with that. And thank you very much for giving me time. Now this is my email. And you can reach me using my email. I'm there to help you with any questions you have or queries you have. Let me stop sharing the slide. Yep, perfect. So if you have questions, you can put in the chat box. So I will go through it.
Thank you, sir. It was an awesome session. It was an eye-opener for us and for all of the participants here. Thank you so much for the session. We have a few questions. Can I read it for you?
Yeah, I can read from, I think the name is correct, N.K. Vijayan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will go through it. Can we not cope with social rejection by means of education? Yeah, that's a good question. I like that question. Social rejection by means of education. We can cope up with social rejection by means of education. Yes, absolutely. And that should be one of the things you should know, education can empower you. Like I said, it is enlightening experience, right? From darkness to light. So when you have that higher level of mindset, you can cope up with anything. So education is liberating. There is a author, Paulo Freire, is an education is an amazing book he has written. He says education is liberating. I believe that education is liberating. And there was some one other question from Joe Peter: how to optimize learning process given the fact that students are overexposed to electronic gadgets, especially gaming. You know, I know the challenges we face. I do have two kids. I have two daughters. They are exposed to electronic gadgets. Without that, I don't know. We have restricted that for weekends mostly. They can't watch it or use it on the weekdays, but they can use it on the weekend. So that is one way we try to restrict. The word overexpose is a good word. Let me say this: when the radio came, those times when people started listening to radios, then the older population, the parents of those times said the kids are listening to the radio all the time. When the TV came, the same thing happened. These kids want to watch TV all the time. Now the era is like this. We have to face it. We are saying that they are overexposed. It is a culture. It's a cyclical culture. It goes and goes and goes. And this generation who is using these gadgets may have to say something new. The next generation is going to find out the new technology that is going to come. So we have to say that. But how can we use these electronic gadgets in a positive way? I would say a good example. Earlier, when internet came into existence, everyone said that is bad. A lot of religious leaders said that. Later, when they realized it is reaching millions and billions of people, they came up with their own websites and their own video programs. Think about it like that. We can use the same thing for positive as well as negative. So go for positive. Try to encourage positive. So gaming things, it is there. Gaming is not as a whole bad. I'm not saying that. A lot of people are into gaming and they come up with, they start their own game kind of a thing, and they're very successful socially, educationally, and academically, and financially too. It's happening using gaming. So that is one side of the story. But too much into that, it's a challenging question. So overexposed the word. Any other?
Excuse me, sir. There's a question in YouTube live streaming. Can I read it for you?
On YouTube, yeah. And then I will talk about the Rajamohan question.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you cope up with students resorting to substance abuse as a way of dealing with stress? From one Miss Sangeeta.
Okay. This is an excellent question. And nowadays, when I read the news, our Malayalam news, we come across lots of incidents about dependence on substance. This is, like I said, this is a when you college students' brain is an evolving kind of a time period, right? So it can easily manipulate. Absolutely, you have to. When you're a student, you should believe that your brain can be easily manipulated by any. Let's say ideology can manipulate you, religious ideology, political ideology, even the national ideology. Everything can easily influence that brain. So that brain can be easily diverted to using substances, addictive substances. So this is, I would say, we need to seek professional help for such incidents. That's the only way we can come out of it. I fully support professional intervention in that one. So it should start from awareness generation to specific interventions. So prevention and intervention. prevention. Both are the ways we can address this, and this is going to be there. It's not going to completely wipe. We cannot wipe out this substance dependent behaviors, because it is there for with us. And Kerala is very high with alcohol consumption. Alcohol consumption is a one thing side of the story. After alcohol, the next generation needs much more powerful intoxication than alcohol, so they will go with another drug. So it is a cycle. And at one point we realize that it's not good, so we will go back. Then it will eventually come. If you look in the historical aspect, this happens in every culture. So I have to say we need to intervene professionally to address these substance abuse issues. Then one question how from Rajamohan, how to make students critically thinking rather than teaching, especially undergraduate students. This is an excellent question. I'm saying just because the critical thinking aspect is the vital part of education. Let's say one of the challenges we face is the culture. We have a culture of not asking questions. We have a culture of not encouraging questions. That is the best way to start critical thinking. Encourage them to ask questions. When you ask a question, that's the moment the brain starts thinking. Remember, when you start writing a paragraph needs more brain work than talking, right? Because your brain has to work a lot. When you write yourself, not copying from other side, but if you write yourself, your brain works a lot. It's the same thing. Critical thinking happens when you encourage questions inside the classroom. Encourage questions. We found answers to questions. That is the basic thing. Unless and until we do that, nothing new will happen. If you think about Steve Jobs came up with Apple computers or iPhone. It is his question he had. How can I make this easy? Rather than, remember I don't know many of you remember, the initial cell phone we had was like a cricket bat. It's a big one. From there, the question led to the smaller ones, handy ones. So every question leads to an answer. So critical thinking happens when there is questions. From Naveen Francis, being a teacher and a parent really finding it difficult to cope with both mainly kids. Education is being affected. How to make the kids into this learning process? Obviously, we are, like I said, this is a very difficult situation. I am also a teacher. I am also a parent. So we need to balance these kind of roles in our life. So how can we encourage them to learn? So that is one thing you should know. Everything is motivation. The motivation can make miracles. There was if you do search in YouTube, there was an Indian researcher who did an experiment with kids. He gave a computer in remote villages of Tamil Nadu and other parts of India, and they could use it, but unlimited internet connections was there. So he asked them to do their own research and talk about biotechnology or something. And after a while, I think a month or so, he came back and asked questions, and these kids, none that there was no teacher, they learned by themselves. And there was a assigned role. He assigned a person to stand next to them and to say, "Oh, you did a great job," kind of a thing. Every time they search something, that motivation was there. Just one single motivation. An amazing thing happened with these kids. They learned by themselves. They didn't need a teacher. Just internet is there and a computer. So they learn about biotechnology. I think biotechnology, but you can Google it. You will come to that in exceptional research, because we have such a brain. The human have such a brain. They can learn by themselves. That's why we are just facilitators. We just there to help them to reach that goal. So we need to create a balance between that learning environment. We should be there to motivate them to learn. And is there any more questions on this side? And from our principal, parents' role in online learning, stress on parents while students are at home always and try to learn using mini screen. I know it is absolutely challenging. The mini screen, you attach to mini screen and you don't know, is it learning or you're using it for a game or you to watch a video? Everything is that screen now. I know it is huge challenge for parents as well as the students. So like I said, this is a unprecedented time. We never came across this time period. We have to learn that. I would suggest our universities and colleges to build a platform for learning in an online learning environment. Here I most of my work is done online, even though if I teach them face to face, most of the assignments and everything is done online, so they know how to navigate through online platform. We need to develop such platforms. Don't be completely reluctant towards online platform. You should be open to that, and I would say that will help in the future. I remember writing everything by hand, all my education except for my PhD by hand. Now I don't do that. Our students don't do that. They submit everything online. So it's a different. We have to try to learn. It's a huge adaptation to it, that kind of a thing. But we have to learn that. Then Sini Mohan, with age, brain cells degenerate, and in your presentation it was said it grows. So in which manner does it grow? That was like I said. We were thinking the brain cells degenerate. It always, there's dead cells happening every time, but neurogenesis happens too. That is a new science says. New neurons always generates there in the brain. So one side is there, other side is always happening. So that's why it is an always evolving thing. Brain is always maturing. It is always growing. So earlier we thought that by 25 done, our brain is not growing. That's why we always say that the matured brain is 24, 25 years of age. It is still the brain grows to an exponential rate when we are in the mother's womb. From there we grow. The growth is not in that pace. At 25, it grows to an adult brain kind of a thing. But then it's not expanding, but neurons are building inside our brain. That is what I meant. It's not expanding. If it expands, it should explode, right? So that neurons is generating in our brain. So new information could be learned even at older age. That is from a learning perspective. And there's Arun George asking, how can we overcome the challenges associated with the generation gap in the online educational scenario? Like I said, the generation gap is always there. It is always there. When I was a college student, I always say my parents, they are in a different era. They never knew all these kind of things. Now this generation thinks their parents don't know this, and like I said, it goes and goes on. So that is a challenge. It is a challenge, but every generation navigated through that challenge, and you will too. You will too, because and I would say it is a good thing that there is a generation to pull you a little bit backwards, so that you will understand to how to navigate things. You will learn that. Eventually you will learn how to navigate. And it is good that they are there to give you some kind of a guidance, in the sense, even though they don't understand it, but they say don't do that kind of a thing. Is always a little bit restriction. I'm not saying complete restriction, but a little bit restriction is always good. So it will help you, and you will navigate through these challenges, that generation gap, because that's how. Because the next generation, when you are becoming older, they are going to say the same thing to you too.
So we can take one last question. I think it's there. Which type of screen did a student use to study? From Gayatri Ajit.
Um, uh, the question, which type of screen did a student use to study? I'm sorry, I didn't. A screen in the sense, Gayatri, could you elaborate what you mean by the screen?
Okay, sir. I think we'll wind up by that. It's already time. Can we wind up by that? It's already time.
Okay. Gayatri, yeah, if you can elaborate, that'd be great. If not, Gayatri, you can also email me. Type of screen, usually if it's a cell phone or a computer screen, if you that mean that one.
Yes, sir. That's it.
If that's the mobile phone or computer screen, okay. Preferably computer screen is always good. It's a much wider screen, you can navigate easily through the computer screen. But I know there are limitations of buying a computer for many people, so I have to accept that reality. And easy access is always cell phones. The mobile phone is much more handy, and so I would prefer a computer screen than a mobile phone. I think. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Excuse me, sir. There's one more question. We'll just
Okay.
explain that if you don't mind. Till what age do neurons regenerate or form? From Sultana Razia.
Okay. Till what age do neurons regenerate or form? It says until your death. It is happening in the brain. That's the new science says. It is happening every time. That's why it's a never-ending process. The new neurons is generating. That's what I read. And in the field, the interesting field, the social neuroscience, it says that it's happening every time. So, and I'm not fully expert in the biological aspects of the brain, because my side is the social aspects of social neuroscience. But I have to know the basic knowledge to work in that field. That's why, like I said, it's happening until you die. That's interesting thing.
Thank you, sir. And it's been a privilege listening to you and your interactive session. Webinar, the success of the webinar always reflects in its interaction. I think we had a very good active interaction from the participants and a patient hearing and very good answers from the resource person also. Thank you so much, Henry, sir, and all the participants who have actively participated here. A reminder, please fill in your feedback forms within 2 hours to ensure your e-certificates. And thank you. And I'm happy to welcome Joe Peter, sir, NAC coordinator of our college. He's been an academician and has a good corporate experience. Joe Peter, sir, I welcome you for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, please, Miss. Very good morning once again. On behalf of Bharat Mata College of Commerce and Arts, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly or indirectly contributed to this webinar, Understanding the Learning Process During COVID-19 from a Social Neuroscience Perspective. At the very outset, I thank our resource person, Dr. Henry, who has enlightened us with his vast knowledge and presence. He did deal with topics, very wide topics, right from very powerful words he has used: mindfulness, motivation, adaptation, encouraging students to learn by themselves. He also spoke about neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. So it was very informative and insightful session, sir. Thank you very much once again on behalf of the entire BMCCA family. We are thankful to our director, Father Jacob, and assistant director, Father Sen, for their motivation throughout for organizing this webinar. I thank our principal, Dr. Joseph, for his enthusiastic support. A special thanks to the IQAC and NAC team members who have made this event possible. Thanks are also due to the enormous support of our IT department. Our heartfelt thanks to all the participants who have made this event a very success. With these words, and we come to the end of this program. Thank you all. Thank you for your participation. Thank you, Dr. Henry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe Peter, sir. Once again, on behalf of the Bharat Mata fraternity, I thank all the dignitaries and the participants present here. And a very big thanks to our Almighty there. Thank you all. Hope to see you one other time in a virtual podium in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Henry.
Thank you.